You know, we spend so much time talking about the cloud. It's this fluffy, ethereal marketing term, right? We upload our photos, our documents, our entire corporate lives into the ether, and we feel good about it.
We do.
But here's the reality check. And honestly, it's usually a rude awakening for anyone who works in IT or legal. The cloud isn't actually in the sky, it is on the ground.
It's servers.
Servers inside massive concrete buildings, consuming megawatts of electricity in specific cities, in specific countries.
Exactly. And for a global company, where that concrete building sits, whether it's in Frankfurt or Tokyo or Des Moines, that isn't just a trivia question. It is a massive legal and operational critical factor.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is Friday, February 13th, 2026. And don't worry, there's no bad luck today, just some really interesting updates. We are taking a stack of documentation that would usually make your eyes glaze over. I'm talking dense technical specs.
Right.
And we are turning it into something you can actually use.
And today is actually the perfect day to tackle this specific topic, because we have a fresh update that just dropped on the Exchange Team blog today.
We do. So here is our mission for this deep dive. We are unpacking the beast known as Microsoft 365 Multi-Geo. We want to understand how a single organization can span the globe without breaking all those strict data residency laws. And specifically, we are going to look at this new announcement regarding in-region routing to see why it's such a game changer for email.
Right. And for our sources, we are looking at the core technical documentation from Microsoft Learn regarding the multi-geo architecture, and of course that blog post from the Exchange team about in-region routing reaching general availability.
Okay, let's unpack this. Multi-geo. If you had to give me the elevator pitch, hopefully a long elevator ride, because this seems complicated, what are we actually talking about here?
So at its simplest level, Microsoft 365 Multi-Geo is an add-on. It allows a single Microsoft 365 tenant.
Which is your whole corporate account, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Your corporate account to store data in multiple different geographic regions or geographies.
Okay, stop there for a second. Because companies have had offices in different countries forever. Why is this specific multi-geo thing a big deal? Why can't I just have a U.S. account for my U.S. team and a German account for my German team?
You absolutely could do that. And for a long time, that was the only way. But think about the administrative nightmare that creates. You have two completely separate tenants.
Two silos.
Two silos. I can see you already get the headache.
The German team can't see the U.S. team's calendar. They can't share files easily.
Precisely. It destroys collaboration. If you have separate tenants, you're effectively two different companies that just happen to share a logo.
Right.
You lose the global address list. You lose seamless file sharing. Multi-Geo solves that by allowing for single tenant administration. You are one company, one directory. Everyone can find everyone else, but, and here's the magic trick, the German user's data sits physically in a German data center.
And the U.S. user's data sits in North America. Okay, hold on. You're describing a scenario where my user directory is one big happy family, but the actual hard drives are scattered across the planet. That sounds like a technical house of cards. If I'm an admin, am I logging into 10 different portals to manage this?
It sounds scary, but that's the beauty of it. It's a single pane of glass. To the admin, it looks mostly like one tenant. To the user, it's invisible. But on the back end, Microsoft is handling all that complexity of keeping data pinned to specific soils.
That is a neat trick, but let's play devil's advocate. Is this for everyone? Should every company just turn this on because it sounds cool?
Definitely not, no. And the documentation is very, very strict about this. The primary use case, really the only valid use case, is data residency.
So compliance.
Purely compliance. It's for enterprise customers who have a legal or regulatory requirement to store data in a specific location.
Right. And I saw a specific note in the source material that I found interesting. It said if you are looking for performance optimization, look elsewhere.
Yes, that is a massive misconception. People think, oh, if I move my data closer to my users, everything will load faster. And while physics is physics, Microsoft explicitly says multi-geo is not a performance tool.
Because the network routing is just too complex?
Exactly. If you have network issues, you need to do network planning. Don't buy multi-geo just to try and make Outlook open a half-second faster. You'll be really disappointed. This is about compliance, not speed.
Okay, got it. Compliance. Now, let's talk about what data we are actually moving. If I toggle a switch for a user in Japan, what moves to Japan? Is it just their email?
It covers the core services. So we're talking Exchange Online, that's your mailbox, OneDrive and SharePoint, your files, Microsoft Teams chat data. And notably, because it's 2026, and this is everywhere now, it covers Microsoft 365 Copilot and Copilot Chat.
That is huge because Copilot processes so much data. Knowing that the AI interactions are also respecting those geographic boundaries is probably a deal breaker for some of these highly regulated industries.
Absolutely. If you're a bank in Switzerland, you can't have an AI summarizing sensitive financial documents on a server in, I don't know, Virginia. That's a fast track to a regulatory fine.
Okay, so we know what it is. Let's look at the mechanics. How does this actually work under the hood?
To understand the architecture, you have to understand the two types of locations. There's the primary provision
I think
geography,
that's where you started, right? Your home base.
right? If you signed up for Microsoft 365 in New York, your primary provision geography is North America. But then you have satellite geographies. These are the new regions you add on.
And how does the system know who is where? Is there some master list somewhere?
The brain of the operation is Microsoft Entra ID.
Formerly Azure AD.
Correct. User information, groups, all mastered in Entra ID. Because that directory is central, that's how you get that global awareness we talked about. Entra ID knows user A is in the US and user B is in Japan. It handles the traffic directions, so collaboration feels seamless.
I'm looking at this map in the documentation, the available regions, and it's actually a fascinating snapshot of global geopolitics. You can see exactly which countries have been aggressive about data laws just by looking at this.
It's true. It's not a random list at all.
You've got the APC region, Asia Pacific, so South Korea, Japan, Singapore. Then you jump over to Europe, and you've got France, Germany, Sweden, Switzerland.
Switzerland is a great example. They are notoriously protective of banking data. If Microsoft didn't have a specific region there, they would lose the entire Swiss financial sector. It's that simple.
And it's not just Europe, right? It's specific countries inside Europe.
That's a crucial distinction. Post-Brexit, the UK is its own distinct data silo. If you're a French company, storing data in London might not cut it anymore under EU laws, and vice versa. The map of the cloud is basically the map of international treaties.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting and maybe a little painful for the wallet. Let's talk about licensing. Because I was reading through the requirements, and there was a specific rule that caught my eye, the 5% rule.
Ah, yes. The 5% rule. This is a critical detail that trips people up all the time. You cannot just buy one multi-geo license to test it out.
I mean, you can't just say, hey, we have one guy, Steve, in London. Let's buy a license for Steve.
No. If you are an enterprise agreement customer, you must purchase multi-geo licenses equal to or greater than 5% of your total eligible users.
Wait, pause there. That sounds like a massive barrier to entry. You're telling me if I have a 10,000 person company and I acquire a tiny startup in Berlin with 5 employees, and I need those 5 people to stay in Germany, I have to buy 500 licenses just to keep those 5 people compliant.
That is exactly what I'm saying, and that is where the math gets painful. The barrier to entry is set there intentionally. This is an enterprise-scale feature. It ensures that customers using it are actually committed to a multi-geo strategy, not just dabbling.
That seems rigid.
It is rigid, and it forces companies to really evaluate if they need multi-geo or if they just need a separate tenant for that acquisition. Sometimes, the silos are cheaper.
And just to be super clear, because we have listeners of all sizes, if I'm a small business, can I use this?
No, the documentation is explicit. Small business products do not currently qualify. Even if you have some of the right technical components, the multi-geo add-on is for the big players, E3, E5, F1, F3.
Got it. So let's say I'm a big enterprise. I've swallowed the pill on the 5% rule. I buy the licenses. Do I just flip a switch and boom, my data moves?
I wish. There's a patience factor here that admins often underestimate.
I noticed that in the notes. A patience factor.
Once you buy the licenses, Microsoft triggers an automatic configuration process on your tenant to enable multi-geo support. It's not instant.
How not instant are we talking?
Most tenants finish within a month.
A month. I think a lot of people assume cloud means instant. I click buy, I get the feature. Why a month?
You have to remember the scale. You aren't just flipping a software switch. Microsoft is essentially re-provisioning your namespace across their global backbone. They are replicating your settings to these satellite geographies. They are spinning up infrastructure reserved for you in a country you've never operated in before.
So if I have a compliance audit next Tuesday and I buy multi-geo today,
You are going to fail that audit.
good to know.
And it's not just the back end. Once the tenant is ready, you have to move the users.
Yeah.
That takes time too. It's a migration project, not a setting. You schedule the moves, the data has to physically copy over the network. That's a heavy lift.
Okay, so that's the foundation. We know what multi-geo is, we know the cost, and we know the timeline. But now, let's fast forward to today, February 13th, 2026. because the exchange team dropped a blog post that changes a pretty significant piece of this puzzle.
This is the main event of our deep dive, multi-geo in-region routing.
Now, I have to admit, when I first saw the headline, I was a little confused. I thought, wait, if I have multi-geo, doesn't my mail already go to the right place? If I'm hosted in Germany, doesn't my mail go to Germany?
That is a very reasonable assumption. But the reality, the Boof-4 scenario was actually quite nuanced and, frankly, a bit of a compliance nightmare if you look too closely.
Walk us through that.
Okay. Imagine you live in London. Your mailbox is hosted in the UK data center because your company uses multi-geo.
Okay, I'm in London. My data is in London.
But your company's headquarters, the place where they originally set up the Microsoft 365 tenant, is in New York.
Okay, HQ is New York.
In the before scenario, if someone sent you an anonymous email, just a regular email from the internet, or if a hybrid server from your own company sent you an email, that email would not go straight to London.
Where would it go?
It would hit the tenant's primary region first. So that email would fly to New York, enter the Exchange online protection perimeter there, get processed, and then get relayed back across the Atlantic to your mailbox in London.
That seems inefficient. Like, imagine if I lived in London and you sent me a letter from down the street in London, but the post office insisted on flying it to New York and back before putting it in my mailbox.
That is a perfect analogy for the inefficiency. But forget the speed for a second. Think about the legal exposure.
Right, because data in transit is still data.
Exactly. Your German employee receives an email. Before it ever hits their inbox in Frankfurt, that data has physically entered the United States, been decrypted, scanned by U.S.-based servers for spam and malware, and processed under U.S. jurisdiction.
Which is exactly what the German regulators are trying to avoid.
Precisely. You've technically violated the spirit of data sovereignty before the email even arrives. You're creating a digital footprint in a jurisdiction you're trying to avoid. Sure. If a U.S. court issues a subpoena for that data while it's processing in New York, technically it's in New York.
I see. So even though the hard drive is in Germany, the processing happened in the U.S., that is a massive loophole.
It was. And that brings us to in-region routing. This is the fix.
So what does this new feature actually do?
The announcement today confirms that this feature is now generally available. It lets admins control the geographic location where inbound email enters Exchange Online.
And this applies to what kind of mail specifically?
It applies to anonymous inbound mail, stuff coming from the outside world, and hybrid inbound mail, which is mail coming from your own on-premises servers if you're in a hybrid configuration.
So how does it work? How do I tell the internet, don't send this to New York, send it to London?
You do it through domains. You associate your accepted domains with specific geo-regions.
Oh, okay. So I might have uk.contoso.com and point that specifically at the UK region.
Exactly. Or even just your main domain if you configure the user alignment correctly. You align those domains with users located in those regions.
And the result?
The result is a direct flight. If configured correctly, mail for a user in the UK enters Exchange Online directly in the UK region. No detour to New York. No touching the primary provision geography.
That feels like the missing piece of the puzzle.
It really is. It connects the dots. We used to talk about data sovereignty, mostly in terms of where the hard drive sits, data at rest. This acknowledges that sovereignty also involves the path the data takes to get there, data in transit.
So what does this mean for the admin? And what does it mean for the user?
For the user, absolutely nothing.
Invisible.
Completely invisible. They just get their mail. Maybe it arrives a few milliseconds faster because it didn't cross the ocean twice. But generally, the user experience is unchanged.
But for the admin?
For the admin, it's a powerful tool, but it adds a layer of responsibility. It reduces compliance friction because you can now look an auditor in the eye and say, no, that data never left the region. That is transparent control. But it requires you to actively align your domains and users.
Right. It's not magic. You have to set it up.
Correct. The blog post explicitly says, if you are already using multi-geo, you need to review your domain and user alignment immediately. You need to see if in-region routing solves a regulatory gap you might have been living with.
It's interesting how this evolves. We started with cloud is everywhere, then cloud is in a specific place. Now it's cloud entry points are specific.
It is the maturation of the cloud. We are moving past the Wild West phase into a highly structured, highly regulated geopolitical landscape.
Which brings us to the so what of this whole deep dive. Why should the listener care, really?
If you are a global organization, compliance is not just a checkbox anymore. It is a survival strategy. The fines for data residency violations in places like the EU or Brazil are astronomical.
Yeah.
We are talking percentages of global revenue. Multi-Geo allows you to operate as a single, unified team without risking those fines.
And in-region routing tightens that seal.
It tightens the seal.
Yeah.
It closes the loophole of the transit path. It gives you a complete story to tell your compliance officers.
Can I imagine it simplifies things operationally, too? You don't have to explain to a German regulator why their emails are taking a vacation in New York before arriving in Munich.
Exactly. It removes the ambiguity.
You know, as we wrap this up, I want to zoom out for a second. Because when we talk about in-region routing and geofencing, we are basically drawing borders on the internet.
Well, we are. That's exactly what we are doing.
The promise of the cloud back in the 2010s was the global village, right? Data flows freely like water. It didn't matter where you were. But this conversation we're having today, this is the re-territorialization of the web.
It's a paradox. To keep the internet global for business so that you and I can email each other instantly, we have to make the infrastructure hyperlocal for the lawyers. We are building these invisible walls where a packet of data from China never touches a server in the US, and vice versa.
It effectively kills the idea of a World Wide Web in the infrastructure sense. It's becoming a federation of local webs.
That is a brilliant way to put it, a federation of local webs. And for the admin, that means your job isn't just keeping the lights on anymore. You are essentially a digital diplomat, managing treaties between servers.
A digital diplomat. I like that. But it also sounds terrifying. Are we moving toward a splinter net?
I think we are already there. Multi-Geo is just the tool that allows corporations to survive within it. The internet isn't broken, but it is certainly partitioned. And features like in-region routing are just the cement on those partition walls.
That is a heavy thought to leave people with. The cloud isn't floating. It's fenced in.
It is fenced in. But hey, at least now you have the keys to the gate.
True enough. All right, that is a wrap for this deep dive. If you are an admin running a global tenant, go check your message center, check your licensing, especially that 5% math, and take a look at your domain alignment. In-region routing is live, and it might just be the solution you've been waiting for.
And remember, patience with that setup time. Do not promise your boss it will be ready by Monday.
Give it a month. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you on the next one.